We've talked a lot about the most common names that the Colts could choose from in the first round of the upcoming draft, but could lightning strike 2 years in a row and hand them a blue chipper all the way at 14? Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Jake Arthur of HorseshoeHuddle.com, your resident credentialed media member for the site, and I am joined by a very special guest today. It is my guy, Damian Parson. He is host of the Locked On NFL Draft Show, and he is a key part of Bleacher Report's NFL Draft Department. Welcome back to the show, man. We got to get you back more than once a year, but this is your time to shine.
Hey, man, you know, I'm just one text away, brother. I'm just one text away. I have no problem at all, man. Always fun talking to you.
It is Dame season, draft season. But yeah, we're talking about the Colts today and their draft, really the whole thing going on here. This is an important draft for the Colts. They tend to, when they draft, there is a lot put on the plate of their rookies because they don't do a whole lot of action in the free agency market. It seems like that's going to be a little different this year. All the right things were said right after the season. But still, you know, the Colts draft their kind of guys until they prove otherwise, really.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about, some options if they trade back. We're going to talk about the best fits there at 14, or if there might be anyone who falls to them. But first, let's look at what their most glaring needs are, because they are a team that does tend to draft for their biggest needs early on. So when you look at this Colts roster, 8 and 9, they missed the playoffs 4 straight years. Logic says they have quite a few needs, but what are the most glaring needs that you see on this one?
I think cornerback for sure. Still needing to find that true lockdown, that number one guy. I was hoping Juju Brents would be that guy when they drafted him about 2 years ago, after coming off a strong season in college and a strong Senior Bowl, that pre-draft process, but injuries have hampered him throughout his career, things of that nature. I think maybe a scheme change going from that passive zone that Gus Bradley would run to more of a aggressive style defense from Lou Anarumo could help him, right? But I think just getting a number one corner be big is a big need, and also giving Anthony Richardson a safety valve. Right, that's not Josh Downs. Josh Downs is that quick option and everything. But when I just went through when I was going through the tape and watching this offense, I saw way too many long, slow developing route concepts deep down the field. And you're asking essentially your rookie quarterback, because he only played 4 games as in his rookie year. You're asking him to hold the ball, make the decision, and then push the ball down the field. I believe he had one of the highest ADOTs in terms of average depth of target down the field, and even intended air yards down the field. I think Anthony Richardson was in the top 5 of all 32 starting quarterbacks, all quarterbacks that played. So getting a tight end, man, the tight end room that you have, it's more ancillary pieces. There's not a guy. Jelani Woods was hoping to be that at big 6'6", 6'7", 250, 260, and a really good athlete. But when you're that big and that athletic, you do tend to deal with the soft tissue injuries, and those injuries can linger. So I think getting a tight end early, whether it be round 1 or second round, it's going to be paramount for this team, because you're going into that period for Anthony Richardson where we know what CJ Stroud is, right? He's been in the playoffs back-to-back years, year 1 and year 2. Bryce Young took somewhat of a step forward a little bit towards the end of the season after being benched. We saw it's just still been peaks and valleys. Granted, those 2 guys started 2 whole seasons for the most part, while Anthony Richardson did not get that opportunity. They need to go ahead and make sure that the defense is improved, especially in the secondary, and then giving Anthony Richardson that safety valve at tight end.
Yeah, that's definitely 2 of the biggest areas we've talked about as well. Cornerback, really both of those positions you talked about. And you even mentioned kind of the cast of characters there. They've just been reliant on certain guys that, were good draft picks when they made them, but it just hasn't turned out. Like Juju Brents, he hasn't been healthy at any point in the 2 years, but he's a really good player when he's out there. And he rises to the challenge of like good competition. Like Devontae Adams and the Raiders a couple years ago is one of his best games of his career.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jelani Woods gave you those brief glimpses as a rookie, but has been on IR for 2 straight years. So it's not necessarily time to turn the chapter and like just you got to get rid of those guys, but you clearly have to have their replacements now, and anything else they can give you is kind of a good cherry on top. But those are definitely 2 huge needs that I think move the roster forward a little bit if they address them. Some other ones we look at here, linebacker, and that might solve itself a little bit. I mean, Zaire Franklin is, he's at worst an average starting linebacker. Depending who you ask, he might be top 5, top 10. Some people think he's in the bottom half. But regardless, you can live with him. But you can't live with both him and EJ Speed being your primary linebackers. Similar players with 2 similar of issues on the field. So linebacker is a good one. A lot of athletic guys and like kind of safety converts in this draft too. Like the last couple years. Depth on both lines, but also a legit RB2. Not necessarily someone to like eat into Jonathan Taylor's reps, but when in the games he was active, he was on the field 80% of the offensive snaps. And you got Richardson, you got Taylor, you've got to have another legit runner because Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson, they've got some utility, but they don't adequately fill that role you're looking for. So those are, when you look at that, does that kind of make sense, at least offensively? Like the Lions
100%.
But like a legit runner to go with Richardson and Taylor.
100. Yeah, I think having that change of pace guy, like you said, that can spell Taylor, but not just spell him as a runner, but also bring that third down value as another safety valve for Anthony Richardson, right? When you're 3rd and 8 and you got a running back, we seen go back to when Bryce was at Alabama, he didn't have the receivers that he had. Jameson Williams that went to the league, him and Jermaine Burton, I think had left, or him and Jermaine Burton didn't really have the greatest chemistry. But when you bring in a Jahmyr Gibbs who can run routes against nickel corners, against safeties, and against linebackers, now you create those advantageous throwing opportunities for your quarterback. That quick check down, I don't care that it's 3rd and 8. You run that Texas route, you're 2 yards upfield, I hit you, and now you got a guy that can get the other 6 by himself. And the receiving core in Indianapolis is too redundant in terms of size and ability. Like, MPJ, possession receiver, good guy that you can get the ball to 7 to 8 targets a game. He can be that possession guy for you. Alec Pierce is the big jump ball, vertical threat. And then you have Adonai Mitchell, who has the size. He has the testing speed, but he's more of a finesse route runner than a true ball winner. Think back to that New England Patriots game where A-Rich hit him right in stride. You had a smaller DB just out physical you at the catch point. You can't have stuff like that. And then Josh Downs being that slot machine. So being able to add another piece to this offense where you give him another option, tight end, that will help, but also bring in a running back that brings that speed and explosiveness that can run the ball. You're talking about duo run, split flow, zone action, things of that nature. But also, because me and Keith talked about it on the pod, man, I would love to have a running back where you can bring them both on the field. One of them is a pass catcher. So, like, you have him and Jonathan Taylor. You go to some shotgun, some deuce sets, and you can get really creative and just pull some stuff from different teams. Look at what the New England Patriots used to do with Tom Brady. When he had, 2 running backs that could catch the ball, he came out there with both of those guys on the field, motion them out, go empty, and force you to show your hand coverage-wise or change your hand coverage-wise, right? So I think just being able to give that type of stuff gives your young quarterback the answers to the test pre-snap. And I think a lot of times in the league, we don't do that enough.
I agree. I think that would be super valuable. Like you mentioned Anthony's ADOT earlier. It was like comical early in the season, like how far downfield. Like he just didn't really have those options. And of course, Josh Downs was banged up to start the year, but give him more short options like that. I really like that idea. I would even maybe double dip at running back in this class. I wouldn't.
It's one of those classes.
Yeah, but all right, guys, we're going to talk about here in a moment. We're going to talk about some of the first round options and maybe anybody who might even fall to them right in their waiting arms, like what happened last year. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back this year, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so that you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also that you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates only on iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, so this is kind of an odd year for the Colts. I mean, they're at 14, which means like anything is possible for them in the first round. But there's really, really been two names that have been hyper-focused on as far as Colts fans go. And so far, that's Tyler Warren and Malachi Starks. You know, they really need that free safety for Lou Anarumo's defense, and they really need that tight end, that safety valve that you mentioned for Anthony Richardson. Assuming they're among the group that you would think of, who all do you think would be good fits right there at like actual possibilities at 14?
And this might sound like a hot take, but I think Colston Loveland out of Michigan would be a better fit for A-Rich as a true pass catcher than the Tyler Warren. This guy's like a big body receiver. You know what I mean? Both of them, like Warren is a better run blocker, has a little bit more functional strength there. I think with Loveland, he's listed at 240, 245, and 6'5". I think he has the frame that you can pack on another 5 to 8 pounds, more so in the lower half, so that he can sustain some of those blocks on as an inline guy instead of just being the pure flex. But when you add him into this offense and make him the motion guy, the pre-snap indicator to see if those safeties and linebackers are traveling with him, he's a good athlete, great route runner, outstanding catch radius and hands, and a guy that could just naturally separate. And that's just against man coverage. With his big frame and his long catch radius and wide catch radius, he can absolutely settle down into those crevices of zone defenses, find that soft spot, settle into it, and be that reliable weapon and threat for Anthony Richardson. But this tight end class, in all honesty, is a loaded one as well. You know what I mean? So I think for them, I think if you're at 14, I definitely look at a guy like Colston Loveland. Look at Tyler Warren as well. Tyler Warren is really good after the catch. I'm just not as high on him prior to the catch. Prior to the catch, there's a little bit of rigidness. He doesn't snap and break off routes as well. And I think as an athlete, he's more of a build-up speed guy, where I think in the NFL, you're going to have to deal with some road barriers to get to your spots. And if you don't get to your spots quick enough with a young quarterback who's developing his timing, his rhythm, and the game is trying to slow down for him, he's going to look off of you. He's going to look elsewhere because he can't wait for you to get to that spot. If guys are chucking you, be able to quick jam you, different things like that, throw you off your route path, or you're just trying to sift through zones and you're not the most athletic mover and twitchy guy, where I look at Colston Loveland, a guy that can legitimately move and turn, and he's very loose in his hips in that regard as a route runner. So I feel like he's a better fit there. And it's crazy because the name, when you think about fallers, like a name that I think would be an outstanding fit, and it's been weird to see his name kind of slip down, is Will Johnson from Michigan. If Will, you talked about being able to get one of those blue chip guys, Will Johnson, one of my blue chip just players in this class. And I compare him to Patrick Surtain the second. The technical refinement, the smoothness to his game, the ability to play man and zone, play off coverage. I think he had 2 pick sixes this year prior to getting hurt for Michigan's defense. Guy that can play from depth, read, and react to the route concepts that's taking place underneath him, passes stuff off well. This is a guy, you're talking about putting a number one caliber corner on this defense, because then when you talk about with Juju Brents, if Juju Brents stays healthy, it puts Juju Brents on the wide receiver 2. That gives him more advantageous opportunities, and you allow Will Johnson to come in and be that cornerback 1, or those guys really just alternate based off of the matchups. You know what I mean? If you have one of those bigger body, you're going up against the Nico Collins, and you feel like, hey, the length and size of a Juju Brents might give him more trouble, then fine, you let Juju Brents follow him. right? If they have a Stephon Diggs come back, you allow a guy like Will Johnson to follow him, and you just allow it to play out that way, and you just have a duo at corner that can travel and match up with any one wide receiver 2 duo. And I think that's going to be a really good situation. Tight end, of course, like I said, those top 2 guys at 14, if they're there, which I think both of them have a really good shot at being there, I think you would look at that. But if one of those corners fell, Benjamin Morrison is another name to watch because he coming off the hip injury. Everybody I talked to that's been in the know about it said that he should be ready to go by training camp, maybe a little bit before, so he should get the full clean bill of health. But we'll find that out next week in Indianapolis at the combine. If he gets the green light from the docs there on the medical checks and medical rechecks and everything, that's going to be big for him because his tape is really good. He battled with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Emeka Egbuka and those guys in 2023 when they faced Ohio State. Yes, he doesn't have the size of a Will Johnson. He's probably listed at like 5'11", 5'10", 5'11", but a guy that is really good man coverage. He plays soft press, soft shoe very well, very refined, good eye discipline, reads and reacts extremely well, and has a really good trigger downhill if he is giving up some cushion and playing from depth. One of the best man-to-man corners in this class, and I think that's a situation where you just bring in another upper echelon cover corner to just help this defense out, because I think that pass rush, when healthy, they're going to be able to collapse the pocket on CJ Stroud on potentially if the Titans are crazy enough to bypass on quarterback and stick with like a Will Levis. You can get back there to him, right? Get back there to Trevor Lawrence. That defensive line can do it. And I think with Lou, if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember I don't believe he sends pressure as much as some of the other DCs. I think if he has a defensive line, he'll let his front four go eat. And you drop 7 back in the coverage, you make those passing lanes tight. And adding another corner to be that legitimate guy could help a lot.
Yeah, I think corner is definitely in play. Just I do think they like their guys. Like Jalen Jones has been far beyond what many would have thought as a 7th rounder, but Juju's been banged up, and Samuel Womack has been a nice player, but probably someone you don't want to rely too heavily on. So corner, I think, is definitely in play. Morrison and Johnson, big options there. We see kind of a dark horse one is offensive line because Ryan Kelly, almost 32, he's going to be a free agent. Got to think he's probably not going to be back. Will Fries, I think Will Fries should probably be their top priority among free agents. He's a free agent. And then Braden Smith is due nearly $20 million this year and has played about half the time in the last 2 years. So he's kind of a salary cap cut candidate. So they've got 3 starting offensive linemen that are up in the air. I know this is like a really good trench draft. So if you're looking at 14, who really stands out as they could be a guard or a tackle? I know there's a couple guys that a lot of people don't really know yet where to put them, but like who are some of the really standout offensive linemen there at 14?
Man, one of my favorite, especially interior offensive linemen, and I think he would be an outstanding fit, even at 14, is Tyler Booker from Alabama. Okay. This guy, 6'5", 325 pounds. He's a road grader. He's got good footwork, strong-handed puncher, a guy that just battles, man. He's going to be able to move. He's a people mover in the run game. And you're talking about being able to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor, adding another running back or 2 to get that run game consistent and be able to hit those big plays. But also you think might be in the red zone, right? It's 3rd and 2 from 3rd and goal from the 2-yard line, 3-yard line, and you want to run QB power. When you have a guy like Tyler Booker, he's going to help sandwich somebody and push him deep into the end zone and allow Anthony Richardson with a lead blocker to walk right on in and get the score, right, and put 6 on the board. I look at him as one of the best, and from what I've heard, the NFL loves this young man and loves what he brings to the table. So that's a guy that you look at in terms of just pure guards. I do think when you think about like centers, Jarrett Wilson from Georgia, 6'3", 310, athletic, quick-footed, quick-handed guy. There's times I think he battled with Walter Nolan. He can be a little overpowered because he is a little bit from a frame standpoint. I don't think he's completely filled in from his frame and everything. So you can add a little bit of weight to him, but he's probably one of the best centers, if not the best true center in this class. But one of the guys that I love a whole lot, versatility is everywhere. And that's, Gray Zabel. Saw him down in Mobile, Gray was outstanding. He
Mhm.
plays tackle, he played center, he played the guard spots, and he was literally locked down the entire week for the most part. He might have lost 1 or 2 reps, but for a guy coming from a smaller school and to go into that situation and to be as dominant as Gray Zabel was, man, I was excited to see him, but I was so impressed coming out of North Dakota State. 6'6", 305 pounds, good mover, good arm length, latch strength and hand grip strength, but also the feet to mirror and match those rushers, the athletic guys, the power guys. It didn't really matter who they threw at him. He was able to handle the different styles. And I think just making sure, because that's something I noticed late in the season, was that when the injuries and stuff like on the offensive line, you can see that start to bother Anthony Richardson. Even though he's a mobile guy, he was trying to play more from the pocket. And when you do that, and your interior offensive line might give up some pressure, then you're not comfortable, especially for a young man that's working to find that rhythm and consistency mechanically with his lower base. Being in the Carolinas, I watched it with Cam Newton his entire career.
Mhm.
When his offensive line wasn't good and he couldn't step into throws, his muscle memory reverted back to throwing off his back foot. Now, granted, when you have a top tier arm, doesn't really matter, right? But then at the same time, timing, just consistency with accuracy, things of that nature. So I think looking at this offensive line, even at 14, I know that the fan base is, and for a while, because I'm an A-Rich guy, I rock with the Colts and everything. Like, of course, the tight end is like, yes, you want to do it. But in this particular situation, making sure that front line is straight and making sure it's going to be solidified for your young quarterback, it means a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's no better gift you could give him. You can give him all the weapons in the world, but protection is number one. All right, guys. So here in a moment, we know Chris Ballard loves to trade back and recoup those picks. So if the Colts aren't satisfied with what's going on at 14, they want to move back. Who are the best options? When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you could place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you could stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I like using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, even during the lulls. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking up a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I've missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting on it forever like some other apps. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. So again, if Chris Ballard has the chance to trade back and get an extra third or something, that's going to be hard for him to pass up. He loves every shot at the dartboard possible. So let's say they don't move back too crazy. They go back to 20, 22, 24. With those needs in mind that we discussed, even some other ones, you kind of open yourself up quite a bit when you trade back like that. Who are some of the guys, maybe from the 20 to 32 range that could really fit for the Colts?
I mean, when you mentioned linebacker earlier, and a guy I think that could be an absolute fit, if you, like you said, you can't keep both EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin in the starting lineup because of the issues that they both have are basically identical. I think Alabama's Jihad Campbell, 6'3", 245. This dude's athletic. He can cover man-to-man. He can drop off in the coverage. He can rush off the end as a stand-up edge rusher, and he plays the run well also. This is a guy that I don't think we've seen peak Jihad Campbell yet. And that's what's so exciting about him. As a guy he's not even 21. I believe he turns 21 next month. In March. So he's not even 21 years old yet. He still has so much more meat on the bone for his game. I think he could be a potential game wrecker as a second level defender. Watching him drop off, against Georgia, he had an interception on Carson Beck. Against LSU, he covered their best wide receiver as an overhang in the slot. in the high red zone. He moves well. Again, he's going to run the alley and be physical as a run defender. He's got the frame and body type where you feel like, okay, he can handle the interior work of dealing with climbing offensive linemen and everything like that. I think this young man, I think he's late first, early second in terms of grades that I've heard for him. And I think, of course, Indy will be big for him. But if you wanted to trade back, recoup some picks, and then get a potential game-changing guy for the defense, especially for that front seven, he just adds another hat to the box that'll make things so much it makes more issues for CJ Stroud, Will Levis, for Trevor Lawrence, because this is the type of guy that you don't, with Lou Anarumo and his ability, he had Jermaine Pratt, Logan Wilson, that good linebacker play helps elevate his defensive scheme a lot. And I think that T.Hawk Campbell could be a really good fit there. Of course, if you trade back, you think about running backs, in this class and everything like that. If they wanted to go with a running back, not in round one, but definitely a little bit later. Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee, 20 years old. This young man, 5'11", 201. I think this is a guy that breakaway speed that we talked about. I think he can catch the ball in the backfield, has some upside as a pass catcher. But in that first round, you're talking about just moving back a little bit and seeing what's available there for you. Man, it's a lot of different options. In all honesty, it's a lot of different options. And for me, I just kind of look at, the defensive situation. Like I said, we talked about Benjamin Morrison. Trey Amos is one of my sleeper corners out of Ole Miss. He transferred from Alabama. He's physical. He will get in the face of wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. He's a playmaker, can make plays on the football, can play from depth as well. So if you want to walk him off, give him cushion, have him squat, and then trigger downhill, he'll be able to do those things as well. He had a solid week down in Mobile. Believe he ended up getting injured or nicked up on day 2. Don't believe he returned for day 3. But yeah, I think he's a guy that you're talking about as one of those corners that makes it into the back end of the first round. I think he's one of those guys. And one of my favorite players in this class, if he fell and Chris Ballard ran the card up, Jalen Walker out of Georgia. I think this young man, I call him the Tasmanian Devil. His energy, his motor is infectious. You could tell he's a leader and was a leader for that Georgia Bulldogs defense. Mykel Williams was the belle of the ball of what everybody wanted to talk about coming into the season off of summer scouting. Jalen Walker took that title, took that mantle, right, and ran with it. This guy plays good as an off-ball backer, especially as a run stuffer. He's a good zone dropper, but he's got that athleticism. They'll use him as a QB spy. And when you're dealing with athletic quarterbacks and guys who can make plays, how many times have we seen CJ Stroud break, contain, roll out, and make a wild throw down the field? No, is he Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson, or Kyler Murray? No, but he has that off-script playmaking ability. And watching him, I think it was against Arch Manning, Jalen Walker was spying them when they played him in the first matchup against Texas. And he made Arch so uncomfortable because Arch knew he didn't have anywhere to go. He was like, if I break contain, he's following me. And he tried to break contain. He couldn't outrun him, and then he sacked him for a loss. You know what I mean? And different things like that. You can blitz him through the A-gap, rush him off the edge. He's 6'2", 245. So, yeah, of course, in this class, you're going to look at, and again, offensive line as well. Armand Membo from Missouri, just a guy that could play that right tackle spot. He's quick-footed. He's got good strength. Like, yes, in this situation, if you trade back into the 20s and you, like you said, maybe Brayton is a cap casualty and you want to cut him, save the money, you can bring Armand in. And this is a guy that can be a day one starter potentially at right tackle for your team at 6'3", 314 pounds. He's physical in the run game. This is a guy, especially the zone blocking game as well. I like him a lot. And I think if you do that, again, as we talked about, yes, there's playmakers and everything like that. But if you want to make sure Anthony Richardson is comfortable first, that should be the first priority. Improve that offensive line. And I think day 2, for those who wants the tight end position, Elijah Arroyo, Jake out of Miami, Jake Brenningstool out of Clemson at 6'5", 240. Might need to bulk him up a little bit, similar to Colston Loveland, more pass catcher than true run blocker. But yeah, you can find tight ends on day 2 that can be big time playmakers in this offense.
Yeah, I'm a big Mason Taylor guy. What we saw from him down
Yeah, I
in
like
Mobile
Mason.
was I really liked it a lot. But no, the linebackers, kind of the edge linebacker hybrids you mentioned, that's the two guys. Zach actually had a toss up. We did a mock draft on Monday, and he actually went with Campbell. But that would be such a weapon to add to Anarumo's defense. Just that versatility, like
Yeah.
EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin could both rush the passer when they were brought on blitzes, but they weren't like natural pass rushers at it. And so either Campbell or Jalen being able to like play off ball, but also look like an actual edge rusher when they come on those, that would be really invaluable for this defense, I think. And it's a defense that needs everything. So when you got a couple guys that could wear multiple hats, that certainly helps. So, Dame, thanks so much for joining us today. You gave us a lot to work with here. That was a lot of really good stuff. And everybody, make sure, again, the Locked On NFL Draft podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen. Now go listen to Damian and Keith. Check out Locked On NFL Draft. Now that the season's over, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. If you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider, chat with us directly, ask us your questions. Just get the inside scoop. You can follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, follow at DP_NFL, at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at ZachX2 on Twitter. We're also on TikTok and Instagram as well. Also, subscribe on YouTube to us and Locked On NFL Draft. Ratings and reviews as well. That is always great. Gets more eyes and ears on the show. And with that, you guys have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.